So what's been frustrating to me about foreign policy is that as much as any other issue we face in government, it's the most nuanced. And yet in the coverage of it, particularly by the political reporting class, it's almost always a false choice that's presented, right? You're either a dove that, you're an isolationist and don't want to do anything, or you're a hawk that basically every solution has a military angle to it. And I think that there are times that require us not to engage because it's prudent, and there are times that require us to engage militarily because it's the best option or because it's the only option. But most of the time, most of these issues that we can engage in require much more than just military engagement, and sometimes don't require military engagement at all. That's why I think foreign aid, properly applied and properly conditioned and properly structured, is an extraordinary tool of American leadership, and has tremendous benefits. I think trade and economic engagement with other countries has spread prosperity all over the world and created markets for our products, but also partners for our businesses. I see it in Florida. I mean, the number of foreign tourists that now flood Disney World and even southern Florida is extraordinary compared to just 20 years ago. The reason why that's happening is because they now live in societies that have vibrant middle classes. And a lot of that is our example, but a lot of that is bilateral relationships that have encouraged that. I think diplomacy has a role to play. I think particularly public diplomacy and the impact that our culture and our news and our information has. And that's why I've advocated to move Voice of America programs, for example, away from just producing content to producing access. Because I think if today there's so many news outlets available to people that in Cuba, for example, I think if Cubans had access to the internet, doesn't matter to me if they're reading Drudge or Huffington Post. The fact that they have access, I prefer they read Drudge. But if they had access to both or access to the world, the information would open the horizons and allow them to aspire to that themselves. And we've seen that. And by the way, these tyrannical regimes realize that as well. That's why they invest so much in denying access to the internet and to information. So I guess the thing I'm trying to say is that we live in a new century, that these labels that people continue to apply are really vestiges of the time that's come and gone. We live in a new world. It's multifaceted. It's complicated. And it requires, I don't even know if it requires labels, certainly requires a broad approach. My last point I would make on foreign policy is too much of our debate is tactical, and not enough of it is strategic. What is their strategic foreign policy of the United States? I don't think leaders in either party over the last 4 to 5 years have done a good job of laying that out. We have general consensus and agreement on about 85 to 90% of what we talk about in immigration reform. Everybody agrees we need to do a better job of enforcing our laws. Everybody agrees that we need to change our legal immigration system so that we can attract the world's best and brightest. Everyone agrees we need a functional guest worker program. Everyone agrees we shouldn't be deporting PhDs and physicists and things of that nature. And the problem is that the Democrats have taken the position that unless we do everything, the one thing that there's a debate about is how do you deal with the 11 million people who are here illegally now? The Democrats' position is unless we do everything, including the thing we don't agree on, we won't do anything. And they feel like they win either way. If they get immigration reform the way they want it, they win because they got what they wanted. If nothing happens on immigration reform, they can use it politically to beat up Republicans as being anti-immigrant, anti-Hispanic, whatever. But it's a completely unreasonable position. I think most people would say if you agree on 90% of it, start doing the 90% you agree on.
Right.
And my notion of it is if we can start to make progress on the things we agree on, not only will we be helping our country, I think we will create momentum and the space, the environment, where the rest of it can be dealt with eventually as well. And that's my hope, is that we'll get to that point. But I think they've made the political calculation that they're willing to go with all or nothing because they think they win politically either way.